ends up summoning a human with an explosion from another world when she is tasked to summon a familiar, a form of magical creature who acts as a companion for magicians. In the world of Halkagenia, Tristane Academy of Magic is home to a fresh class of second-year students where a teacher is demonstrating a simple form of magic. After the explanation, the teacher calls on Louise, a pink-haired girl, which startles her classmates because of her magic's unpredictability. Despite the warnings, Louise casts the spell, causing stones to illuminate and an ensuing explosion, and this incident earns her the nickname Louise the Zero due to her zero success rate. Meanwhile, at the principal's office, Osman is delighted that the school year has been going on smoothly while his secretary, Longbuell, gets angry at him for his perverted attempts. After the classes, Louise meets with her rival Kirch, who berates her for her zero skills. But Louise claims that she will summon an outstanding familiar in tomorrow's class. The next day, as the summoning ceremony begins to conjure a familiar spirit, Louise's unorthodox attempt results in yet another explosion, revealing a sleeping boy afterward. The boy's commoner appearance surprises the students and they yet again laugh at Louise for summoning a peasant as her familiar. Louise wishes to retry, but her teacher denies her the chance while the boy wakes up and Louise and her classmates can't understand the language of the boy she summoned. The boy attempts to escape, but Louise grabs him and establishes a familiar contract by kissing him, causing him immense pain before he faints with a rune on his hand. The boy then awakens in Louise's room later and urges Louise to take him back home, but she ignores him, instructing him to do laundry. Unfamiliar with the language, he tries asking about her identity, but Louise tries to silence him with a spell that, in typical Louise fashion, triggers an explosion. Unexpectedly, this explosion has a side effect. They can now understand each other. The boy reveals his name is Sato Haraga and questions why he's in this situation, making Louise clarify that she summoned him, and Sato notices the rune on his hand. Meanwhile, the teacher realizes that the rune on Sato's hand is an extremely rare anomaly. On the other hand, Louise expresses disappointment at not summoning a dragon or griffin. Sato flees and dashes outdoors, passing by Louise's classmates Gitch, who is busy flirting with a girl, and Kirch. Pursued by Louise and the others, Sato is lifted into the air by Gitch's magic. During this ordeal, Sato realizes the presence of two moons in the sky, which makes him finally realize that he is no longer on Earth. In a flashback, it is revealed that, on Earth, Sato stumbled upon a peculiar green object in the street, and when he touched it, he was transported to Halkagenia, setting the course for his current predicament. Chained in Louise's room, he explains his situation, but she disregards his claims, asserting that contracts are binding, and commands him to perform tasks like cleaning and laundry, while Sato's protest falls on deaf ears, who reluctantly sleeps on a straw mat as Louise dozes off. The next morning, they have breakfast in the dining hall, and Sato is amazed by the lavish spread, though Louise informs him it's reserved for nobles and he is on the floor as her familiar. After breakfast, they encounter Kirch, who annoys Louise, making her order Sato to bring her some tea. While bringing tea, Sato meets Siesta, a maid from the academy, and learns that only nobles possess magic, while commoners do not. As they converse, Gitch interrupts, requesting a pie, and Sato decides to take revenge on him as he recalls the last night. Gitch is busy charming Montmorency nearby, though she's cautious due to rumors of his involvement with a first-year girl. Gitch denies it, but before he can finish, Sato interjects and confirms Gitch's two-timing behavior, fueling Montmorency's suspicions. Sato also points out Katie, the girl from last night, leading to a confrontation. Accused of two-timing by Sato and confronted by both girls, Gitch receives a slap and becomes a subject of mockery among the students, which infuriates Gitch, and he issues a challenge for a duel. Louise finally returns and requests Sato to apologize, but he refuses. Disregarding Louise's belief that he cannot prevail against a noble, Sato proceeds with the duel. In the meantime, Instructor Colbert presents his research to Headmaster Osmond, who recognizes the legendary runes, and makes Colbert promise to keep this knowledge confidential. Concurrently, Gitch initiates the duel by summoning a metal Valkyrie soldier to fight on his behalf. The Valkyrie delivers a forceful blow to Sato's abdomen, causing him to stumble. Despite Louise's concern and appeals, Sato repeatedly rises after each fall. Gitch eventually offers Sato a sword, which he accepts despite Louise's protests. As Sato wields the sword, the rune on his hand emits a radiant glow, and his wounds heal magically, enabling him to effortlessly dismantle the Valkyrie. Despite Gitch's attempt to deploy more Valkyries, Sato overpowers them all and advances towards Gitch, making him surrender. However, once Sato releases the sword, he falls into a deep slumber and wakes up 3 days later in Louise's room. Siesta delivers food to him and reveals that Louise, who is now asleep at her desk, has been caring for him constantly without rest. As the days go by, Sato becomes increasingly frustrated at being tasked with Louise's laundry, while he also mentions Siesta's claim of looking after him without sleep. But Louise dismisses it, asserting that she's merely fulfilling her role as a master overseeing a familiar. During class, Sato joins Louise and learns about the nickname Louise the Zero from his classmates and takes the opportunity to tease her about it as well, even composing a humorous song making Louise withhold food from him. That night, Sato's hunger prompts him to pester Louise until she concedes, but his unintentional chest-related remark in a cheer enrages her, causing Louise to banish him to the hallway for the night. Luckily, Siesta discovers him and takes him to the kitchen for some leftovers, where the chefs regard Sato as a point of pride for the commoners. After that, Siesta also reveals to Sato that Louise had actually ordered expensive medicine for his recovery. Later, as Sato prepares to sleep in the hallway again, Kirch Familiar, a salamander, appears and drags him to Kirch's room, where Kirch tries to seduce Sato, and just as she kisses him, Louise arrives to interrupt the scene. Louise pulls Sato back to her room by his ear and whips him like a dog. Damn, that is cruel. Sato, however, grabs her arm and teases her about being jealous, which earns him a knee to the groin from Louise, who confesses that she doesn't mind who he's with as long as it's not Kirch. Later, Sato clarifies the incident with the salamander, prompting Louise to joke that it's embarrassing for him as a supposed sword wielder. Sato explains that the duel with Gitch was his first sword fight, and his body moved on its own during the battle. The following day, Louise takes Sato to the town to buy a sword, while Kirch and Tabitha follow them secretly. At the shop, the sword he really likes costs 3,000 gold coins, a sum far beyond Louise's budget of 100 gold coins. Disheartened by the price, they settle for a cheaper, older sword, while Kirch decides to purchase the expensive sword for Sato as she has a crush on him. Later, Kirch and Louise present the swords to Sato, who is caught in their argument once again. Amidst their squabble, a voice unexpectedly interrupts them, telling the idiot women to be quiet, which makes Louise and Kirch direct their anger at Sato. But Tabitha reveals that the voice came from the sword itself. The sword is an intelligent sword, able to talk, and Sato is immediately drawn to it. Meanwhile, the sword introduces itself as Derflinger, who has been asleep for quite some time. Osmond receives a visit from Count Mott, a messenger from the royal palace, who warns the academy about an impending thief. That night, while Sato is doing laundry, Siesta joins him to help, expressing her gratitude and newfound courage in his presence. On his way back to Louise's room, Sato is once again tempted by Kirch into her room, where she offers him various items to him, but when he refuses, Kirch tackles him on the ground. Louise arrives just in time and catches them in the act and drags Sato away to scold him again. The following day, Louise has Sato wait among the other familiars while she attends class. Uncomfortable around the magical creatures, Sato eventually seeks solace with the chef, who provides him with food and informs him that Siesta has left the academy to work for Count Mott. In Louise's room, the talking sword Derflinger suggests that Siesta may become Mott's mistress due to the circumstances. After acquiring directions to Count Mott's mansion from Gitch, Sato embarks on a mission to rescue Siesta on his own. However, Count Mott proves resistant to the idea of letting Siesta go, sparking tension between Sato and Mott, but Siesta intervenes, diffusing the situation and pleading with Mott for Sato's forgiveness. Mott reveals his interest in a specific book, the Zerbst family's heirloom, and proposes trading Siesta for it. Sato rushes back to the academy, encountering Louise on the way, who brings him to her room, where she advises him to give up on Siesta, making Sato falsely comply. Once she falls asleep, Sato sneaks into Kirch's room to take the book, but Kirch asks Sato to date her in return, which infuriates Sato, prompting him to take the gold sword and ride to Mott's mansion on horseback. Tabitha observes his departure, and with Kirch's help, they wake Louise to inform her that her familiar is missing. At Count Mott's estate, Sato finds himself apprehended by guards and brought before the Count again. Drawing his sword, Sato realizes that he is unable to control it and is promptly subdued by Mott's water magic and ice arrows. But Louise storms into the room and detonates the arrow. Despite her best intentions, Louise attempts to take responsibility for Sato's actions, but Kerch takes the initiative, offering her family heirloom to Maud as compensation. The Count accepts the offer and releases Siesta. Soon, Sato realizes that the supposed book is a vintage porn magazine from 1975, leading to the realization that it likely originated from Sato's world, the same as his. Back at the academy, Siesta expresses gratitude with a kiss on Sato's cheek. Sato then attempts to express his thanks and apologize to Louise, who is already plotting the punitive measures, either 100 lashes with a whip or starvation until the brink of death. Meanwhile, at the Tristane Academy of Magic, Louise is engaged in training Sato for an upcoming familiar competition where the familiar has to perform an act to win the hearts of the audience. Louise decides that their act should involve Derflinger. Although Sato's previous inability to wield a sword effectively makes him worried, but he tries to practice, resulting in a comical failure. Later, Siesta encounters him and discusses the upcoming competition, mentioning that even Princess Henrietta will attend. Henrietta's arrival is met with great anticipation, and Sato observes that Louise seems to blush as she watches. As the evening approaches, Sato remains at a loss for a performance idea, and suggests that he should show off his laundry washing skill, which enraged Louise. Just in the nick of time, a knock on the door interrupts the situation, and a cloaked girl enters who turns out to be Henrietta. The princess embraces Louise, revealing their childhood friendship and the promise they made to support each other through tough times. Henrietta, in the present, informs Louise that she used her influence to absolve them of blame in the Count Maud incident. Before leaving, she embraces Louise and encourages Sato for the upcoming day, while Sato's attempt to sound impressive frustrates Louise, leading to a playful banter. Henrietta departs, emphasizing the value of freedom as a treasure. During the familiar competition the next day, all second-year students showcase their familiars, while Louise's introduction of Sato as a commoner prompts laughter. But Sato's attempt to restore order backfires, embarrassing him further. As Louise drags him off stage, Fauke targets the treasure room, but her golem is detected by Louise and Sato. Amid the chaos, Sato pushes Louise out of harm's way when the golem attacks and asks Louise to flee. But she refuses and casts a fireball, inadvertently creating a chaotic misfire. The spell not only nearly burns Sato but also damages the treasure vault's wall. Recognizing the opening, Fauke directs her golem to exploit the crack and breach the vault. In the meantime, Tabitha is declared the competition's winner, and Tabitha's dragon Sylph takes to the sky, displaying its flight, and the ground trembles from the golem's impact on the vault wall. As the wall cracks, Sylph and Tabitha rush to the scene, witnessing Fauke's escape with the stolen Staff of Destruction. Sylph swoops in to rescue Sato when the golem drops him, and Fauke manages to evade capture, leaving the aftermath. Louise attempts to apologize to Henrietta, who reassures her that she doesn't hold her responsible, and leaves, as the palace will be in disorder. As Henrietta departs, Louise shares her concerns about the rumors circulating regarding the royal court. Sato wonders why Louise didn't flee during their encounter with the golem, while Louise emphasizes that a mage who abandons their familiar is not a true mage. The next day, Louise is angry seeing Kerch feed Sato in class, while Kerch mentions Henrietta might be blamed for Fauke's actions since guards were reassigned to protect the princess. After that, Louise, Tabitha, and Kerch are summoned to the headmaster's office, where they learn of a suspicious person in a forest house. Louise and the others volunteer to retrieve the staff with guidance from Miss Longbow as the guards feel threatened by Fauke.
This new Charmin Ultra Soft Smooth Tear is so soft and so smooth.
Case magic. They set off, and Sato questions why a noble would be a thief, which makes Miss Longbow, a mage turned commoner, explain to him that not all mages are nobles. The group argues until Kerch gives Sato a golden sword, and he takes it at Kerch's insistence. At the abandoned house, they find the Staff of Destruction's box, but the golem reappears, ripping off the roof. Tabitha and Kerch magic are ineffective, which makes Tabitha call her dragon to flee. Outside, Louise's magic only causes a small explosion, and Louise decides to stay, with her intention to prove herself. The golem attack almost hits Louise, but Sato saves her and slaps her, emphasizing her safety matters more. Tearfully, Louise admits running away was due to fear of ridicule. Hearing Louise's words, Sato faces the golem with the golden sword but breaks it on impact. Sato, resorting to Derflinger, lights up his rune and dismembers the golem, which regenerates. Louise takes the Staff of Destruction's box, which turns out to be a rocket launcher. Sato identifies it, his rune glowing again, and fires it at the golem, obliterating it. Amid the celebration, Kirch hugs Sato, but Tabitha wonders about Fauke's whereabouts. Miss Longville, actually Fauke, reveals herself, holding them at the rocket launcher point. Sato attempts to reach Derflinger, but Fauke exposes that she will use the Staff of Destruction against them. Fauke aims at them, yet the launcher fails to fire. Seizing the moment, Sato knocks her with Derflinger's hilt, as he knew the weapon's origin, with only one rocket like those from his world. After Fauke is apprehended and the Staff of Destruction is returned, Sato is excluded from rewards due to his commoner status and seeks Osmond. Sato reveals that the staff's origin is a weapon from his world, making Osmond recall an incident 30 years ago involving a man wielding such a staff. The man's demise left the staff entombed with him, while another was presented to the royal court, making Sato worry about his future. During the dance party, Sato contemplates returning when Louise appears, ignoring others to approach him. As they dance, Louise acknowledges his origin and shows her gratitude for his help. Their dance continues, Louise blushing, while Derflinger notes this unique bond between master and familiar. At the royal palace, Henrietta confers the title of Chevalier upon Louise and expresses gratitude to Sato for his assistance, entrusting him with Louise's care. Extending her hand for a loyal vow, Sato, confused, kisses Henrietta on the lips, causing her to faint. Louise takes revenge. Henrietta then assigns them a mission to investigate rumors of commoner oppression by nobles. Louise proudly agrees but despises wearing commoner attire and facing financial limitations. Even though Sato proposes practical solutions, Louise's anger gets the best of them, which makes Louise depart alone, upset by the seemingly impossible task. As the sun sets, Sato discovers Louise sitting by a fountain, having lost their money in a casino. A man named Scarin appears, offering them a place to stay if Louise works at his Fairies of Charm Inn. There, Louise disguises herself as a waitress, and Sato assists by washing dishes with a girl named Jessica. Scarin announces a chip race week, promising the winner a magical bustier that can grant wealth, making Louise aims to win. But her noble pride clashes with serving commoners. During business hours, men make advances toward her, triggering her temper and making Scarin intervene, rescuing Louise from the awkward situation. That night, an exhausted Sato gives up the bed to Louise, but she's disturbed by bats and ends up sharing Sato's bed. The following day, Louise continues to struggle at her job, splashing wine on a customer and slapping another. Meanwhile, in the inn's kitchen, Sato discovers Jessica is Scarin's daughter. Louise grows jealous seeing them talk and noticing Jessica's well-endowed chest. Louise hurls a wine bottle at Sato, knocking him out. Later, Sato awakens in a private room with Jessica by his side, who realizes that he and Louise aren't siblings and probes for information. Sato plays mysterious, piquing Jessica's interest, but Louise interrupts them. Jessica questions Louise's poor performance at the inn due to her small breasts, motivating Louise to vow to win the chip race. A tax collector named Chelen arrives with guards, clearing out the inn and targeting Louise. Unaware of Chelen's reputation, Louise confronts him, and his inappropriate behavior leads to a scuffle, but with the royal permit, Louise forces Chelen to give up his money, winning the chip race. Later, Louise wears the bustier, and when Sato's compliments fall flat, she wishes for different words. Meanwhile, a mysterious man releases Fauke, addressing her first as Fauke and then as Matilda of South Gotha. During their journey back to school on horseback, Sato's unintentional grasp on Louise frustrates her, who elbows him off the horse. Seeing Tabitha and Kirch boarding a carriage, Kirch informs Louise and Sato about their trip to Tabitha's home. In the carriage, Kirch chats with Tabitha, who is also an overseas student, and shares her past as a troublemaker who was discarded, catching Tabitha's attention. A farmer halts them due to Lake Lagdorian overflooding, prompting a detour. Back at school, Sato observes Montmorency's anger at Gitch and spots a large